and welcome to GJ Gardner's Unlocking the Value of Your Land webinar. We're going to talk today around how we work together with the clients, with GJ Gardner Homes, around the different opportunities and possibilities of building and developing their land. Presentation should be somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes, and there will be an opportunity for you to submit questions. Just send them through via text and we'll answer them at the end. All right, so thanks for joining. My name's Graham Van Leeuwen. I am a sales manager here at GJ Gardner's Manukau. I'm also one of the franchisees. My background is in design and build. I'm a qualified architectural designer and an LBP'd carpenter. I'm really passionate about helping our customers, and that's why I've chosen to put myself in the sales team so that I can get involved with inquiries at the start of the process and make sure that we provide the right information at the beginning to get the best outcome at the end. Today's webinar will give you a breakdown of how it's going to roll. So I'll tell you a little bit about the systems and the way that we work at GJ Gardner Manukau. Then we're going to get into the unitary plan, and we're going to pull in one of our specialist consultants, one of the land surveyors that we use, to give us a bit of information around the unitary plan and just how it works with these types of projects. And then it's really about understanding the process. I think that's the main thing that people have joined us today. I think a lot of people don't know where to start or how it works, especially when looking at doing a subdivision. There's a little bit more involved than just building, so we'll dive into that, and hopefully you'll leave today with a better understanding of the process. And then we'll look at a few case studies, because there's different ways and different methods you can use to unlock the value of your land around building. And there's different reasons as to why you would choose one or the other. So we'll look at what the options are around that. And then we'll just cover off with a brief explanation around the benefits of building with GJ Gardner Homes and the service that we offer, especially to our mum and dad clients or people who don't know where to start, because we really do run you through the process right from beginning to end. All right, so let's get underway. So GJ Gardner Homes, Manukau, we're locals. We've all grown up in the area. I've been building in the area for almost 20 years. We use local contractors and suppliers, so we're really locked in with the network, and we've got our ear to the ground so that we're trying to keep on top of any changes or any innovations that we can work into with our building. We're local consultants as well, and that's really key. It's a real key attribute if you understand the area and the suburbs and the markets that we're working in when looking at these unlocking the value of your land projects. We've got a couple of show homes which are really valuable, especially our Glendowie show home. It's new, it's only been open for less than a year, and it's a really great example of a subdivided property. It's on Riddell Road. It's got a really good sized family home on what is now considered a half site. So it gives a really good impression of the spaces and the sense of layout and what you'll be left with if you're looking at taking on one of these projects. It's also a really good example of one of our custom designed homes and a custom design solution specific to that site. Great example of the finish and materials and specifications that we use in GJs in our houses, and lots of different options and different ideas that we've worked into the house so that you can get some great ideas around what you'd like to maybe put into your home. We've got another show home out at Beachlands as well. It's a single level home. It's 240 square meters. It's still a good example for a subdivision property or a remove and rebuild, especially. We're getting a lot of people looking into taking away the existing house and building something new, single level. So if you want to come out and see the show home at Beachlands, again, it's got some different features. We've tried to vary our show homes so that we can show lots of different examples of new design ideas throughout the homes. Otherwise, you can come and see us at East Tamaki. We've got a design centre on Springs Road. That's where we're based Monday to Friday. We've been in the area as a franchise for 20 years now. We cover all the suburbs through the central Auckland area and out through Manukau all the way down to Manurewa, Takanini, and out through Clevedon, Whitford, Maraetai, Beachlands. We're doing a lot of building out through there. In-house, we've got architectural designers who can help with modifying one of our pre-designs or coming up with a custom design for you. We've also got quantity surveying service to help us price and offer that fixed price contract for the build. And we've got a really experienced team of new home consultants to help you through the design and sales process. We are unique at Manukau in that most of our builds are either a remove, subdivide or development project. And I'd just say, look, come in and see us. We can sit down and show you examples of some of the things that we've done and how it all works from beginning to end. Talk about being local and using local contractors and suppliers. And I mentioned that we're lucky today to be joined by one of our local consultants who helps us on these projects. It's really key when you're doing a subdivision project to have a quality surveyor who can help with resource consent lodgement and all the work through the subdivision side of the project. So I'd like to introduce now Hilton Watson from RPC Land Surveyors, and he's going to tell you a little bit about what he does. G'day, Hilton.
Hi Graham, and thank you and welcome everyone. So a very quick rundown on RPC and who we are and what we do. We're a multidisciplinary surveying, planning and development engineering company. Like Graham and the GJ's team, we've been based in the Auckland area for just over 20 years, and as a company we've been established for 45 odd years within the North Island. And we sort of look at the resource consenting side of things, the public drainage and requirements for subdivision and the land transfer survey.
Great. Thanks, Hilton. And we're going to touch base a little bit further now, because what's really changed with allowing us to unlock the value of our land is the new unitary plan, which Auckland Council brought in around about 3 or 4 years ago. It's a new regulation document for the design and development of building projects within Auckland City. The unitary plan impacts developments from a design perspective around how we can develop housing now, and it's opened up a lot more properties to subdivision and infill housing. The whole idea around the unitary plan was to try and cater for the massive increase in demand that Auckland is expecting and has seen over the last decade and is expecting for the next 2 or 3 decades as people start upgrading the housing stock within Auckland and as the population is expected to continue to grow. But I'd probably throw back to you, Hilton. What have you seen in regards to the unitary plan coming in as far as the major impacts around these subdivision projects? What's unlocked for the customers that we work with?
Yeah, Graham, you're right. One of the main objectives for the unitary plan is to create more household units. So we're going to have more dwellings and have more people in the city. So they've looked at how that is going to work within the geographical confinements. And we're finding that with the unitary plan, one of the main key things is there has been a reduction in density. So there is no density requirement. So there's no longer a house per so many square metres. Also, they have removed the requirement to have a subdivision or a section of a certain size. So there's no longer any size requirements. Another key consideration that the Auckland Council have put in is they've removed the requirement for 2 vehicles per household unit and reduced that to 1. So that frees up a fair bit of space and manoeuvrability around the site. Yeah,
absolutely. And I suppose one of the burning questions that we seem to get from all the people phoning in, and some of the first things they ask is, here's my property, or I've got this property of this certain size, how many houses can I fit on it? And it's never quite as simple as that, is it? It has unlocked it, but there's still a lot of requirements that we have to achieve with the new houses that will dictate how many houses can fit on a property.
Yeah, absolutely, Graham. So the unitary plan is very much a design-based piece of documentation. So whilst the density has been removed, you still have to have a dwelling that meets certain requirements in terms of the layout and coverage on the ground, outlook spaces for amenity. You've also got to consider, how are you going to service the site from a wastewater, stormwater perspective, and also access on and off the road.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, the unitary plan is a council-based document, but when we're looking at these subdivision projects, there's also other regulations that we have to follow with the other service providers. So I understand, obviously, they've split out water care around sewage and water supply. Healthy Waters now takes care of all the stormwater. What other service providers do you have to work in with when we're doing one of these projects, Hilton? What other things does the customer have to take into account as to what they're going to have to upgrade or do to the property as a whole to achieve something like this?
Yeah, you're correct. So council sort of split itself into a few arms to manage the demand. The big thing is every new dwelling or existing dwelling needs its own connection to a wastewater, stormwater and water supply. So you have to deal with water care for the water and wastewater requirements. Auckland Councils and Healthy Waters look after the stormwater. Auckland Transport's another key sort of component. They're all about access, working within the road corridor, getting on and off the road. You've also got Vector and Chorus. And yeah, there's a raft of other organisations out there that sort of crop up time to time.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose that's where it differs from just a building project, isn't it? So where we traditionally would just be building a new home on a green site with all those services already there for us to connect into, when we're redeveloping an existing property, that's where you come into play more to make sure that all the infrastructure is there or is accessible for the project, and to take care of things that range from floodplains and overland flow paths through to council trees out on the boom, anything that's sort of outside a builder's scope. That's where you come into play, and you can manage all of that for us, Hilton.
Yeah, definitely. So that's going to be one of the key drivers from the resource consent application that you apply for and get approved by Auckland Council. There'll be a whole raft of conditions that you have to meet, and it's all about servicing the development, making sure people are going to be safe, that the environment's not going to be affected, and you have a good quality lifestyle. So definitely, yeah.
It sort of throws into town planning, doesn't it, Hilton, which is what these projects sort of fall into when we're looking at developing a property and putting multiple dwellings on it. It branches into town planning, and you've got in-house services for all those sorts of things?
Yes, definitely. So we've got in-house planners, know the unitary plan really well, know all the little intricacies. We have very good relationships with all the council and water care and healthy water staff. So yeah, we're here to help you and work in conjunction with GJ Gardeners to make a formidable team.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's where it works so well, is when we do work. And so I always say that when you're doing a project like this, it's as important to have a good land surveyor on your team as it is to have a great builder. So obviously GJ Gardeners, we take care of the design and the build consent, the engineering around the construction of the dwellings and the new homes, but then we really call on RPC and Hilton's expertise to help us with all the other things outside of that that are required to get one of these projects over the line. So example on the screen now of a 4-lot project we're doing in Mount Wellington currently, something that RPC have helped us with. And there's examples on the screen here where you can see the outlook spaces coming out of the living rooms, and we've shown, demonstrated how the cars are going to approach the site and turn and reverse maneuver out of the garage. It's all these sorts of things that will begin to lead to the design on the houses, and it's all those things that will dictate how many new dwellings we can fit on a property. So it's never just a simple answer of you can fit 3 or 6 or 4. It's always a case of us working through this preliminary information to understand, and sloping sites can be a big challenge too, as to how we work around the slope and things like that. Any other hurdles or challenges you face with a project like what we're seeing at the moment, Hilton?
The unitary plan, it has overlays, so specific areas in Auckland have more stringent requirements on them. So one of the things is stormwater management and connecting into the existing stormwater infrastructure. So yeah, there'll be parts within Auckland that are known as stormwater management areas, so they may require detention or detention and retention to control the rate of flow into the stormwater network. You've touched on it briefly, overland flooding and floodplains. You've just got to assess where the water will go in a storm event, and how the people are going to be safe with the design. That's about it, really. Yeah,
and I think that sort of covers what we would tackle at the beginning of a project, and that's where it really leads into, people ask, what's the process? How does it start? Where do we start? Well, we have to look into all this information first. So how it usually starts with GJ Gardner Homes around the process of doing one of these projects is we will provide you with as much information as we can gather from the different sources that are available to us at council and the other regulatory providers. We offer a free preliminary appraisal of your property, and this can usually be done over the phone. In about 10 to 15 minutes, we can call up enough information to give you an indication as to the suitability of your site for development. Making sure that we're checking flooding areas and overland flow paths, making sure that we're checking the availability of the infrastructure around drainage and services, and then looking at slope and making sure that we're not getting ourselves into something that's going to require a whole lot of unknown cost. So we will give you as much information as we can for free around the suitability of your property in that first preliminary development appraisal. And then if everything's looking good, that's where we want to move into the second step, which is to try and understand what the goal is with the project. And we're going to look at in a minute around the different types and why you would look at doing different things, but also to understand what the outcome is you're looking for, and to understand the brief and the estimate. We need to start chalking down some numbers as to what we would estimate the total cost of the project to be. And that's where we want to give you the full picture around subdivision costs, contributions, public drainage, cost of the build, and the cost of the site works. If there's any retaining or extra allowances for earthworks, if it's a sloping site, right-of-way concrete design, all those sorts of things, we try and give you the full picture at GJ's. But that's where Hilton needs to get involved. So if we've done the site assessment and everything's looking good, if we've taken the brief and given you an estimate and we all agree that we're on the right path, that's when it's time to start calling in Hilton and his team of surveyors to start doing some due diligence. And so that's where I'd ask Hilton, what are the first steps that you would recommend a customer looking at doing this sort of project would do around due diligence on their property?
Yeah, Graham, one of the first things that a client would have to do is undertake a topographical survey. And that's where we would survey everything that's on their site at the moment. So the ground, all physical occupation, buildings, fences, garages, notable vegetation. We'd also have a big picture sort of look and see in terms of the development and where the client wants to go, what public infrastructure is nearby that we'd need to survey, identify, do some research on grades and invert levels for the drainage, find out where water, power, phone and connections are all are, and sort of a big overall foundation of what's going to happen for the project. So that'd be the first step.
Absolutely, and that's what I say to all my customers. I say the topographical survey plan, and whether we CCTV some of the public drainage, it's really good information for you to have as a property owner. Whether you're looking at putting a swimming pool in the backyard or developing the property with multiple houses, the topographical survey plan is a really key piece of information. It's accurate, up-to-date information that our architects then use to start modelling and designing the construction on the property. So it really is a key first step, and then it sort of leads into us engaging one of our architectural designers to start looking at the house design, and that's the next step in the process. So provided that we've ticked off the budget and you've checked with your bank around finance, because that's key too. Really important you've got your bank or your financial lender on board, because we've seen people go through this whole process and get to the end only to find out that the bank aren't behind them and they're not willing to fund the funds for the project. So check with your bank that they're on board. That's the information we're trying to give you with that project estimate. We try and make it presentable to the bank manager to get a pre-approval, and then we keep going. And that's when we look at the project design as the next step. So we've got in-house architectural designers. We've got a raft of pre-designed house plans. We can start looking at making the development take shape around design, and we can take it all the way through till the final scheme plan, and that's where we use our quantity surveyor to give you a fixed price contract for the build of the houses. Provided everything's ready and we want to proceed, the next step in the process is to go to contract, and then we start preparing the resource consent and the building consent and all the engineering and all that technical stuff, while you're going through the fun process of choosing your colours, your exterior materials and finishes, all the fittings of the inside of the house. You get to go through that same enjoyable process. And at GJ's, we provide a kitchen design consultation. We have interior decorators that will sit down and work with you through all those decisions to make sure that we get a great looking product at the end of the day. Finally, the last step in the process is construction, which is sort of what everyone thinks we go from step one to step two. It's not quite that simple. And maybe that's where you could tell us, Hilton, around the timelines involved with submitting a resource consent for subdivision. Does it cause much delay in the big scheme of things?
It can do. We are unfortunately at the mercy of council and their processing timelines and how busy they are. But normally we try very hard to work in with GJ Gardeners to have timelines where we are doing things in the background while building consent, or the homeowner is looking at something else and doing something else for their build. We might be, sort of putting the public drainage in while they're going through the interior design aspect of the new build. So yeah, we try really hard to sort of work in together and integrate the work so there are no big lags and time delays.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where we try and make the process flow as quickly as possible. We understand that, customers don't want to be delayed from accessing the final product or their property for for the least amount of time possible. That's our goal too. So we've got a team in GJs of specific construction supervisors to manage the build once we get into the construction side of things. And they're going to give you weekly updates and make sure that the build is progressing as smoothly as possible. We also offer a fixed completion date, which is pretty rare these days for a builder. So now we're going to take a look at the different types of projects. Now, we start with remove and rebuild. It doesn't really fall into the subdivision category, but we are seeing a lot of people who love the location of their property, they love the community that they're in, or they just love the lie of the land, or it's been the family property for a generation, and they just don't see the benefit in moving. But perhaps the house is no longer fit for purpose. We're doing a lot of leaky home demolition and rebuild. So remove and rebuild, it's something where we work in with the local remove companies to have the house taken away, and often it's sold for a pretty good return. Or we can reposition it on the property if we're going to look into subdivision. But remove and rebuild, something a lot of people are doing now, especially in the higher value areas, and we're giving them a great new home, either custom designed to their sort of vision, or something that works in with that subdivision, which is sort of where it flows on to next. So when we look at a subdivision project, we're talking most of the time around building another house on the property, creating a new title to enable either the kids to move into their first home, or for the property owner to then sell and regain some capital, or it could be for a rental investment. And we're seeing a lot of rental investors who have got position or space on their rental portfolio properties to fit more housing. Could be a really good way of getting the kids into their first home. Like I said, we're doing a lot of that. And again, if it requires repositioning of the home to a corner or to the front of the property to create space, we just work in with the relocatable housing companies to make that doable. So subdivision, we've sort of covered it off with the unitary plan. Multiple dwellings or duplexes are becoming more and more common. We're across all of that. We're across all the fire rating for party walls. We've got great systems in place now for building multiple dwellings. But then you get into the development scale type of projects where often we'll remove the existing house and we'll take a fairly decent sized property and look at increasing the density of dwellings. So it's really popular with rental investors to take away a property where they've only got one rental return from one dwelling, and we can look at putting multiple dwellings on and timesing that rental return by 3 or 4-fold, depending on how many we can make work. Ideal for developers because it's low stress. We handle the whole project and it's low maintenance. So you end up with a brand new product, so it's really desirable to those sorts of people. And that's sort of flowing into the reasons why you choose to build with GJ Gardner Homes. So again, free development appraisal for your property. We specialise in the Auckland area and we understand the unitary plan really well. We offer fixed price build contracts from the concrete floor up for our houses, and we'll try and give you as much information around subdivision costs and all those other bits and pieces as well. We offer quality fixtures and fittings. If you come through one of our show homes, you'll see that we only use well-known New Zealand brands in our homes. We've got a great library of designs that we can call on, but we also offer a modification and customization design service here at Manukau, and we're backed up by nationwide agreements. So that's the best of both worlds. You're dealing with the best known brand in the country as a builder, but locally we've got that local knowledge that will help you achieve a great outcome on your property. So come in and see us at the design centre. We can start looking at the plans that might drop onto your property. Otherwise, just give us a call. And I suppose if you take anything away from today's presentation, that's the message. Is if you want to know more or if you want the information, just pick up the phone and call GJs. We're here to help, and we're here to give you the honest opinion around the suitability of your property, and we'll try and help you as much as we can. So that's really it, guys. We've sort of covered everything off. I'm going to now look at what questions we've had come through and see what we can answer for you. Okay, so we've got a few here. First one's talking around, do you guarantee a fixed price? When we're talking about subdivision, obviously, like I said, we offer a fixed price contract for the build of the house up. Hilton will come in with the pieces around the cost of subdivision, and then we just need to calculate what's involved with building on your property around site costs. So yes, fixed from the concrete floor up, that's as good as you get from any builder. And a fixed completion date too. So it's all in our GJ Gardner contract. We'll have a completion date written down for the finish of the project. Another one here. What if I don't like the house plans you guys have? So again, and it's really challenging, guys, with every property we look at around subdivision, just to take a pre-designed plan and drop it straight on. Sometimes it works, a lot of the time it doesn't. And that's why we've got the in-house architectural designers with our team. If we need to custom design something, which often we do, they're on board and they're really capable of giving you a great outcome. So we take the brief and they'll come up with a solution for you. What are the costs involved with subdividing? How much do we have to set aside? How much do we have to set aside for this? So again, I'd throw to Hilton, but I suppose the thing I would point out is we try and include all the costs. So you'll hear some people who don't include the contributions from council. We try and give the full picture, but Hilton, maybe you could answer that one. So the costs of subdividing, and it depends how many houses you're putting on the property too, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely, Graham. It's a bit of a chicken and egg question, really. One of the big driving factors for costs for subdivision is the public drainage. How do you service the storm and wastewater? So we're finding that if this is readily available, i.e. on-site or directly adjacent to the site, the cost to subdivide is not too excessive. If you have to extend the public network and you're dealing with neighbours and right of entries, or you're out in a road reserve and you've got to replace the actual road itself or footpaths, drainage can really sort of push the level of cost up. Also, how many houses you put on site will have a determination, because Auckland Council are going to charge their development contribution per new dwelling. Likewise, Watercare will do the same thing. So that, yeah, there's not really a set number for each sort of scenario. It's definitely a case-by-case basis, but, rule of thumb, we're finding on average, if you're subdividing a property for one lot on the back, 180, 200 grand, that will get you everything up to a new title. 3 to 4 sort of lot developments, allow 225, 250, but yeah, every site is different, and it's all relative to what's there and what you have to do to make it serviceable.
Absolutely, and that sort of leads into the next question. So someone has asked, what's the per square metre rate for building I should be looking at? And it's again, how long is a piece of string? So when we get asked what's the square metre rate for building, we always say it would be irresponsible to try and throw out a square metre rate. It depends on the size of the house. It depends whether it's 2-storey or single level, but mostly it depends on your site and what we have to do to build, especially in Auckland. A lot of Auckland has sloping sites that require a lot of earthworks or retaining to be able to achieve a good build platform. And then it comes down to specification. So we cater from entry-level first home buyers or rental investors who want the best possible square metre rate for a good product, which we can offer in both single level and 2-storey. And then we cater right through to the people who are building their dream homes with sea views and expect a high level of finish and a high level of specification. So we will tell you the cost of building, but we want you to call us and give us some more information and let us look at your site. That's kind of the whole key is we don't want to lead people down the garden path. We want to give you real information. So you give us some information around what you're looking at and what you'd like to do, and we'll tell you, one, whether it can be done, and then we'll look at how much it's going to cost. And then the last one here, I suppose, is if I want to find out more, what's the next step? So like I said, guys, you can either pick up the phone and call us, or you can come in to the Design Centre in East Tamaki on a Monday to Friday, or come and see us at the show homes. Look online, we've got the information on the screen at the moment. There's another one. Can covenants be removed, and how do you go about it? That's a tricky one. That's a Hilton question, I think. Hilton, covenants, can they be removed? Do they expire? A lot of covenants do expire.
Yeah, you're correct. Some covenants will have a limitation on them. It all depends what the covenant is in place for and what it's trying to protect. I'd really, in all honesty, have to do some research and review the covenant and see what's in place. If it's something to do with the QE2 and natural protection of bush or vegetation, it's highly unlikely that you're going to get it removed. So yeah, it's a little bit more research involved in that one, but short answer, you can remove covenants, but yeah, I'll just quantify that with it depends what it is.
Yeah, and I think the inquiry had a bit more information around it being in the Waitakere. So something we're seeing too, a lot of Auckland Council now, they've put special overlays around protected bush and tree areas, and so, you know, while we can push back on some things with council, it seems these protected bush and special areas of interest are pretty black and white around no-go zones. So yeah, that's really all we've got time for today, guys. Reiterating, call us, we can help you. Come and see us at the show home or at the Design Centre. We'd love to be involved with your project. Thanks very much for joining us today. Maybe we'll do another one of these live in our show home coming up in the next month or so, where you can come and meet us and interact face to face. We'd love to do something like that. Otherwise, thanks for taking the time today to listen to our presentation.